I'm Rosie, this is Rosy Hardy Gardening. Today we've got the November Q&A. So I've been sent in quite a few questions from you wonderful watchers, and it is amazing how many different questions we get, and they regard videos from quite a long way back. So don't sort of think that we don't look back to see what people are asking. Please do send in your questions, because we will keep them going through the year and we will answer them at some stage. Okay, so this one is a lady who has bought plants from us before, only just discovered the channel, and is asking about splitting of Geum Scarlet Tempest. Now I've just got a small plant here, but what you've got to do, and it's the same process with these tight clump forming ones, is that you need to look at the plant in your garden or in your container, and you will be able to find that there are lots of little shoots. Sometimes there are really strong shoots like this, and with a plant like this, and yes, I know this is in a container, but what you can do, and it's quite easy, is you pull it to that sort of point like that. And this is where a pair of old secateurs or old snips are really, really useful, because what you are going to do is you are going to push them down and you are going to cut into that plant, and then hey presto, look, it has come apart, and you now have two plants to be able to pot up and move around. And that is one of the easiest ways of doing it. You just do it gently like that and it works really, really well. I've got another one here where somebody was asking, and I thought it was easier to give a demonstration than really talk about it right the way through. Somebody has got Sedum herbsfreud. Although this is not a Sedum herbsfreud, the same thing happens. So at this time of the year, you have got the dead flower heads at the top. They can look unattractive, they can sort of snap down, and they're just really asking whether or not they can cut them back. Well, if you look into the base of the plant, you've got some wonderful growth here. So the answer is yes. Basically, you can just go around and you can cut off all of that old growth, leaving just the little sticks like that with that there, and then that leaves it tidy, and that is absolutely fine for the plant to overwinter in this condition. Right, let's go on to some of the other questions that I've got here. So this one is regarding Erysimum, or the perennial wallflowers, and they're asking what is the best time to prune them, which time of year. So perennial wallflowers are something that will, when you buy them or when you first have them from cuttings, they look really beautiful, wonderful foliage at the base. Then they start going up and then they flower up at the top. So you should deadhead them regularly, and when you deadhead, you should take a bit of growth as well, so you're doing a little bit of pruning at that time. If they get a little bit woody, then you need to be taking them back, and you can do that most of the time of the year. I would not recommend doing it just before the winter. Yes, take dead head off, and then in the spring, so whenever your spring is, and it can vary in different countries and it can vary in different years. So when the spring is starting and you see new shoots coming, then you take them back to the lowest lot of shoots that you possibly can. That will send up new growth and you'll get a load of flower on them. But do remember, Erysimums are short-lived, so somewhere between 3 to 5 years is really where they look the best. So you do need to be taking cuttings every second year so that you can keep them going, or purchase a new plant. Someone here is saying they like the videos, which is lovely to hear. Very glad to hear that. And they wanted to know what I think would be a good border depth. So if you are putting in a new border, what depth should you be thinking about? These people are saying 3 meters. Absolutely, 3 meters is brilliant. If you've got the space to put in a 3-meter border, then go for it. If you can go a bit wider, yes, that's fine. If you can't, don't worry. Even a 1.5 meter deep border you can do, but you just have to choose your plants more more specifically for a smaller space, let's put it that way. So a 3-metre border is brilliant because you can get lovely shrubs in there, you can get a small tree in there, you can get some wonderful herbaceous and maybe add in a few bulbs and everything else. So yes, go for a slightly deeper border if possible, but remember to leave yourself areas that you can get in. So put yourself in stepping stones or little hidden pathways so you can get into the back to be able to look after the plants that are growing in there. Then we've got one about the allium lavender bubbles, and I think this is because when we did a video and we put in lavender bubbles, they're asking whether it should still be in flower in September. Well, the answer is yes, they may be in flower that late, because sometimes they will have done a flush of flower, you can deadhead, and then they'll produce a second flush of flower. You would normally expect them to be flowering midsummer, just into the autumn. September is usually a little bit late, but do remember sometimes we will be filming much earlier than when we release the videos. That is just the way that we have got things worked out. So occasionally things may seem a bit out of kilter. Right, this is regarding the tall grasses. This person is asking whether they would be suitable for a windy site in Scotland. And the answer to that is yes, they are, because as long as they are put in the spring and allowed to grow, then they will be buffeted all the time that they are growing, and therefore they will get to a point where they are strong enough and they can withstand that wind. So don't be worried about them. They will work out what height they can grow to, and if it is a very windy site, then they will probably stay a little bit lower. Okie dokes, what's this one? Oh, these ones are from Scandinavia. So this is from somebody in Denmark, and they're planning to do a narrow row of taller grasses in a strip. And they're wanting them to say roughly stay at around about 60 centimetres at the base, but be nice and tall. And just wondering sort of which grasses to put in there, and is suggesting they probably want to use Carl Foster. Well, Calamagrostis Carl Foster, yes, that will absolutely be fine. You'll get a lovely low base, tall, quite upright grass heads on it, and it stays as a reasonable clump. So they want to know, is there something else you can mix with that which will stay as clump forming, and asking about miscanthus. Well, some of the miscanthus will get really quite large, but it takes them quite a bit of time to get to that point. So if you are happy to perhaps split them every 2 to 3 years, then yes, miscanthus are a good idea. Morning light is wonderful. It's a really, really good form, and that will give you a complete contrast in foliage to your Calamagrostis. So that's quite a good one. Also, say something like Malapartus, a completely different flower head, different colour, slightly about the same sort of height as Carl Foster, but a different flower height, different time of year in flower. They would work well together. If perhaps you wanted something slightly smaller, just to give you a different type of growth in there, you could perhaps think about using something different and not actually using a grass, but using something which has got a leaf that looks like a grass. And I would recommend Libertia. So Libertia would look fantastic. White flowers in the spring, wonderful grass-like foliage, which stays evergreen. So that would be another idea. Right, the last one I've got for this month is about cutting back miscanthus, and this is somebody who again is in Scandinavia, so they're in Norway, and obviously it can be very cold, it can be very snowy quite on into March, and it's saying they do look messy. Now yes, I would say you can. I mean, basically what you would be looking at is actually just taking the flower heads and seed heads out of your miscanthus. And we would normally here in the UK, because we don't have the snow cover, be talking about cutting the actual grass pieces back in probably end of February, beginning of March. So it depends on whether you can get to that. I would say you can cut them to half height going into the winter if you really need to, but you would be better off leaving them there because that actual old grass is protecting the crown of the plant. So it depends on how tidy you really want the plants to be. And if you are unsure, then perhaps trial one plant. And that is the best way of finding out whether or not it will suit what you are looking for. It's really your own personal preference. I don't mind the grasses looking like that, to be honest. But yes, perhaps having the seed heads like this just looking really untidy, then take those out. Don't worry about the rest of the plant. I hope that this has helped you with all the questions that we have answered here. Please do add more if you want to have yours answered. We always look back to try and answer them. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel.